Hey everybody, and welcome back to Teal House Farm. Today we are back in the kitchen and we're going to be putting together one of my favorite baking mixes. I like to keep three on hand. I keep a chocolate brownie mix, I keep a muffin mix, and I keep what I call an all-purpose mix in my pantry for easy recipes. And today we're going to make the all-purpose mix together, and I'm going to show you two ways that I use this to help make meals or treats go faster. If you're interested in the recipes for either the muffin mix or the brownie mix, I'll link those below. I have videos from quite a while ago. I haven't made a new video of those recently, but the recipe is still the same, so you can check those out if you're interested. Today we're going to make them in a container that holds about a gallon. This is just a glass container that I got at Walmart, I believe. It holds just about a gallon in volume, and I have one of these for each one of my mixes. So just letting you know that, so you can keep that in mind if you are making this mix, that you need a container about that size, or you're going to have to alter the recipe. Now, we are going to be making this recipe with ingredients that are not sensitive at all to any sort of specific diet. So if you are gluten-free or dairy-free, I can talk a little bit about alternates as we go along, but the recipe that we're going to be making is not going to be sensitive to either of those, so please keep it in mind. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. It is pretty simple. I'm just going to show you my recipe card. I apologize for my sloppy handwriting because I'm usually the only one who reads these, but today we're going to need flour. We're going to need dry milk. If you are dairy-free, you can substitute rice milk for this recipe. However, if you are going to substitute the flour, I am not an expert on this, and you will need to also substitute a binding agent for the gluten. So you would need to figure that one out on your own. But the rice milk is a great substitute for the dry milk that won't need anything additional in the recipe. You're going to need some baking powder. You're going to need salt. You're going to need some cream of tartar, and we are going to use vegetable shortening. And I know everybody always clutches their pearls when it comes to vegetable shortening. You do not have to use vegetable shortening, but let me talk about why I use it. I use the vegetable shortening so that the mix is pretty much ready to go, but it is still shelf stable. I can just put it in the pantry shelf. It's going to be good for about 6 months, even with the shortening mixed in there. If you want to use butter instead of shortening, you're going to have to store it in your refrigerator. If you have room in your refrigerator, the butter is probably a much better option for you, or you could use lard. That would probably be a better option than the vegetable oil. But I don't have space in my refrigerator. I need this to be shelf stable, so the vegetable mix or the vegetable shortening is the best choice. Now, you could leave butter, shortening, lard out altogether and add it when you make your recipe, but then that's just one more thing you have to figure out the amount you're going to need, and you're also going to have to get from the pantry. And one of my goals with my mixes is that they're pretty ready to go and need very few things pulled out of the pantry. So all that to say, if you don't want to use vegetable shortening like Crisco, there are other options, but it's going to lose some of the convenience as far as storage or mixing up later goes. Let's go ahead and put this all together. I like to mix in a separate container and then pour into my jar so that I can make sure that everything gets mixed together really well.
We're going to use a large stock pot today that helps make sure we have plenty of room to mix. I keep my flour in 5-gallon containers because I buy it in bulk. You could use any kind of white flour you want. I'm just going to use all-purpose white. I've also done half white, half wheat, but I definitely prefer the all white. We're going to do 10 cups of the flour, and then I'm going to do 2 cups of dry milk powder, then a 1/3 cup of baking powder, a tablespoon of salt, and we're going to need 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar. And now I could not find my measuring spoons here. I looked everywhere, and so we're just going to do our best guess. 2 teaspoons, pretty close. We're going to whisk that together with a fork. Woo, look at all that dry milk powder. And then we are going to go ahead and cut in 2.5 cups of vegetable shortening, so that's Crisco. As I said before, you could definitely substitute butter or lard, but then you would have to store this in the refrigerator, and that's just really up to you whether or not you have enough space. I don't, so I do this, makes it shelf stable. Cut them in with some knives until you have a crumbly, well-mixed mixture. It's going to take a little bit of patience, and it's going to look like that when you're all done. Now that it's well mixed, well cut in, we're going to go ahead and put it in our container. This container gets used over and over and over again for this mix. I just go through it all the time. We're going to pour it in, and it fits almost perfectly. This is really the perfect size recipe for these 1-gallon containers. Shake it down, give it just a little extra mix just to make sure, and we're done.
Now that we're all together, let's make a recipe. There's two recipes we're going to talk about today. The first is super easy, and it's your drop biscuits. For drop biscuits, I just like to use this cast iron drop biscuit pan, and it's going to be 3 cups of mix and 3/4 cup water. You whisk that together just until mixed, don't overmix it. Plop it into your pan, 450 for 10 minutes. Super easy, and it's great for like biscuits and gravy or just biscuits and jam, a real quick breakfast without a lot of measuring and all that to put your ingredients or cutting the butter, any of those things. Today we're going to show you step by step how I use this to make a coffee cake. We're going to make a blueberry ribbon coffee cake, and we're going to save ourselves lots of steps because we already have the base mix mixed up. So the first thing we're going to actually do is make the ribbon part that goes in the center of the coffee cake, and Ivy's going to help me with that. So we're going to get some blueberries and a few other things.
First up, we're going to mix up those blueberries. We're basically making a blueberry jam, a real quick one. So we're doing 2 cups of the blueberries. You could use fresh or frozen. And we're going to add about a 1/2 cup of just regular white sugar. You could use honey if you wanted to. That will obviously add honey to the flavor, depending how you feel about that. We're just going to use the white sugar because it's a lot cheaper than honey. And then we're going to add a splash of lemon juice. It helps add a burst of flavor to the final product. Ivy got a little confused about where we keep the lemon juice, but she found it. She added probably about a teaspoon. We're going to mix that over a medium heat until the blueberries start to bubble. I'm just going to reuse the pot I just mixed up the all-purpose mixture in to go ahead and make our coffee cake base. So we need 3 cups of our mix. We're going to add 1 egg. And then we're going to add 1/3 cup of sugar and 1 cup of water. And I added a splash of vanilla. It's probably about 2 teaspoons. We're going to whisk it together. Now this does make a pretty stiff batter, so don't be surprised about that. I have an 8x8 pan that's been greased, and we're going to go ahead and put half of the batter on the bottom. Easiest way to do that is with a spatula. I just kind of eyeball it. If you end up with a little too much on the bottom, you'll just kind of figure out the top. It works out just fine, even if it's a little bit lopsided. Spread that around so it covers the bottom. And then at this time, our jam is about done. So Ivy's going to go ahead and smush the blueberries with a potato masher. We don't want them completely smushed. We want some whole blueberries still. That adds to the texture of the final product, but we are going to mash them a bit. We did not add any water to the mixture. The blueberries and the sugar make that watery mixture you see, and we want that in our cake. I do prefer using frozen blueberries to this because it does give you a little bit more water in that final jam product. Spread those around and then top off with the second half of your coffee cake mixture. It's not going to be perfect, but spread it around as much as you can without getting any blueberry mixture on top. Then our oven is on 350, and we baked it for about 40 minutes until it was well done and the knife came out clean. Looks like that, and it smells absolutely delicious. You could top this with some brown sugar and cinnamon mixture, but it really doesn't need any more sweetness. It's very sweet with the sugar plus the blueberries. It's also really hot, but I really wanted to try it. Delicious and simple. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you all again really soon.